Hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Physics 41st meeting. This is the 41st meeting, and today is the 16th of August, and we are starting promptly at 7:30 British summertime. That's what it is, yes. So I need to share screen and welcome everyone. Welcome. We have a couple of new faces here. We have Pontus, whom we got to know a little while back, and he was jumping into the Zoom meeting earlier. We usually start earlier amongst ourselves before we hit the record button to start officially. And we have Professor Paul with us as well. And the rest of us had been in physics for a long time. Most of us here are founding members of physics. And we have Michael Melchizedek Moore, who joined the meeting early today, and he was with us right from the beginning, but then he disappeared for a while. Welcome back, Michael. It's always lovely to see you and your lovely creative creations of the copper devices that you built. We would love to see them towards the end of the meeting. Right, I'm going to share screen, so bear with me. I'm going to start the presentation of the physics presentation. Welcome. Free Energy Special Interest Group, that's what we are. And it's the 41st meeting, 16th August. I am Crystal Gore. I am the founder of True Vision of Peace and Physique, which is the Free Energy Special Interest Group. And the co-chair today is Dr. Fred Fresel. Now, you may want to know what is physics. Please go to our website, and our website will be, if I would just share screen, our website. If you go to our website, it has everything there for you to know what we do, what is our mission statement, and what's the objective of having this group, where it's a platform for all who are interested in alternative energy, free energy. And it is a platform where we share ideas and we progress with the working together and looking for breakthroughs of free energy to free humanity, where science and spirituality meets. And if you scroll down, you can see join us. So if you click on this button, you can join us, and you are put in our database, and you will receive reports of our meetings, also invitation to join the meetings through your email address. Okay, and then of course we need some donations to keep us going, but thus far it's privately funded by myself and by a few of us in FESIG, the founding members. And today we have Elizabeth Donavan speaking, and then we have next meeting we have Patrick J. Kelly of the famous practical guide to free energy devices that he has written 3,300 pages and all. And when you scroll down, you'll be able to see the lineup of physics speakers, meeting etiquette rules and announcements, and physics meeting reports. They're all there for you to see and read about. And some of the speakers has brought very interesting disclosure information for your attention and interest. And this is the lineup of the physics executive members. And here we give you the link to join our meetings, and it's always the same, so you'll be able to remember. It's so easy to join us. Okay, so I forgot to change it to the 41st. Anyway, here we are. This is the recordings of the past meetings. The physics meeting video links are all here, okay? And you just scroll right down, and you'll be able to see you know, in the future we'll be making physics seminars and workshops, so look out for that. And we have our executive council members trying out to make some of the devices that is carefully selected by Patrick J. Kelly to make as a prototype. And once it's really smoothly working and running, we will then use that as a model to create a workshop for you. So there you are. Now I'm going to take that away, and I'm going to put back this PowerPoint presentation. So next one, what is it all about? And this is our meeting agenda. So a quick presentation of physics, which I've just done to new members. And new members would like you to introduce yourself in a moment. So the chair today is myself and Dr. Frezel, and the speaker is Dr. Elizabeth Donavan. And then once she has finished, I'll introduce her in a minute. Once Elizabeth has finished her presentation, we will go around it. We will do a question and answer session, and then we're going to have Michael Melchizedek showcasing his devices. And then we're going to go around the table, and there being no other business, we're adjourned to the next meeting on the 6th of September 2017, when Patrick J. Kelly will continue with what he had covered up to item number 21 of the 21 devices that he had listed, okay, the LX core battery. And then he was interrupted by COSO during the last meeting, so he had to stop at the number 21. He had prepared a lot more, actually, during the 40th FESIG meeting. So he had already prepared another 24 more devices to present in his second presentation, the forthcoming 42nd FESIG meeting, which will be on the 6th of September. So please look out for this one and don't miss out on it, because if you're truly free energy enthusiast and a developer and a builder, you shouldn't miss that one. Okay, so I said thank you for well, letting me drag you on with this presentation. So I'm going to put that down now. I'm going to then stop sharing. I'm going to present Elizabeth properly, and then she will be taking over the microphone to do her exciting presentation. Now, I would like to I think before I do that, I want the newbies to introduce themselves. Pontus, would you like to introduce yourself a little? Tell us how you come about to be here with us. Unmute. I'm unmuting you now, Pontus.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I have been interested in free energy for several years, and lately I studied Keshe and built some devices, and they work.
Pontus, where are you from? Which country are you from? Which country?
I'm from
you?
Sweden.
Sweden. Wow. Cool. Thank you. Yeah. Carry on. And then you are still with Cash, or are you independently searching and looking for a device that works?
Well, I'm still with Cash, but independently searching for other things also. Mm-hmm. So I'm not stuck in the way.
All right. We welcome anyone from anywhere. All right. And we really love to have you here. Thank you so much, Pontus, for your introduction. We will carry and we'll let you drive in peace. All right. So we will go on to Dr. Oh, Dr. Paul has gone off. Okay. I'm sorry. Hey, James, you're here. Neurological, yeah. You've changed your Zoom ID. Okay, so I think since we don't have a newbie here, let's go on to, I'm going on to introduce Elizabeth now. All right. Thank you, Pontus. Drive safely. Right. Okay, so our physics scientist, our speaker today is our physics scientist, Dr. Elizabeth Donavan. Presents papers professionally with her deep knowledge and experience in the field, well qualified in electronics, statistical process control, statistical quality control. She designed different consumer-grade items for various companies. She's into Arduino programming and is self-taught in CAD and 3D printing. She majored in physics and chemistry, consulting on various topics, including alternative energy. She talked about the politics of suppression of knowledge, philosophy, and technology. She has presented papers in high-profile conferences with her peers such as Tom Bearden, Dan Winter, Greg Braden, Alex B. Abolensky, Mike Upstone, and other notables in the field. Her current focus is in the direction that society is taking and the politics of suppression of knowledge, philosophy, and technology. Eliza did a superb presentation about the possible solution plan for implementation of alternative or vacuum energy and the history of free energy, and an outline of selection of different energy and propulsion technology during the 38th FESIG meeting. In today's meeting, in this 41st meeting, she will be presenting some of the most amazing insights on genetic reshuffling, eliminating defects and preventing diseases, age reversal with transmutation of radioactive contamination inside the body, or poisonous elements into harmless ones, or transmuting poisonous elements into harmless ones. So therefore, transhumanism may become obsolete. Right, over to you, Elizabeth.
Okay, so let me begin sharing the screen and we can go straight to practical regeneration.
Yes.
Okay, and see there. Okay, is it coming through?
No. Click share screen, then click share again.
Oh, okay. Let's see. There.
Yeah, it's coming on now, Eliza.
Okay. Okay, great. So let me go to the slideshow. Here we go. So anyway, it's a study in healing and time. And the title is Practical Regeneration. And it's reviewing some technologies that span from Tom Bearden to Rakowski to Reif and a few others. And they all have a few things in common. And I'm going to be just briefly touching on most of these, since nothing really in depth, this is just an overview. So, it's time for time. First, time is not an observable. And we can't really observe time. We observe the motion of the hands of a clock, or the motion of electrons inside of electronic circuits, or that sort of thing. It also carries positive entropy, which means that things tend to break down in positive time. It therefore has a scattering effect, which means that it tends to scatter energies rather than focus them. And in negative time, of course, I mean, it's the opposite of that. And time can also carry energy. Now, this is also very interesting. This is according to Tom Bearden and several others. He quotes several sources on that one. Now, the most important part about the healing is that entanglement can occur between the past and the future. So that means that you can quantum entangle the present with the past, or a future self in the past, and it will affect who you are now. Okay, what is time reversal? It does not mean time travel. For example, there have been some people that think that this is actually traveling to the past. Actually, no. What you're doing is you're actually quantum entangling the matter with its past. And that has serious ramifications. That means that it's essentially a reset on the physical self, or the physical level. So this essentially, it's very important for healing, in that when you quantum entangle, say, an illness with a past self that's completely healthy, then the body will remember what the healthy state is and will reset itself. And this is something that Priori did. Okay, it's done with a version that is less entropy than the present one. In other words, if you're going to be doing healing and your past self was less healthy than your present self, you don't want to do it. or you want to actually entangle with a past self that was more healthy at some point in the past. The matter will reconfigure to that past pattern. And when this is done, the matter organism resets to that time. Unfortunately, the disease can reappear later. So this is a problem. Now, there are ways around that one, which I'll cover as well. Now, Prairie accomplished this in the 1970s. His mice appeared younger, but seemed to keep their memories. This indicates that our memories are in an energy body that exists outside of normal time. He cured 99% plus of cancer. Now, changing the lifestyle and mental attitude can prevent reoccurrence in people because, I mean, we have a level of consciousness greater than animals, obviously. And we can actually direct our intent and our consciousness and steer away from that disease paradigm that we ran into. Now, genetic reshuffling can also prevent this in a more advanced version. By that means that you can not only move back and forth in time, you can move sideways in time. And when you're moving sideways, that means that you're moving into alternative selves. So you can also do reshuffling, for example, with a template that's also provided, so that if there's a template that may correct a genetic predisposition to a disease, or if it's a birth defect, that even if you regress all the way back to your childhood or babyhood, it's still there. Well, there's a way around that one too. And this is the genetic reshuffling, in which case you take a template and superimpose the template over the body, and then it will reconfigure to that template. And that will actually, it'll disassemble and reassemble the genetics into a healthier body. It'll be actually reconfiguring, so you're not really experiencing a disassembly, it's just reconfiguring into the template. So this is also very important because there are some people that have some serious genetic problems, including some children that are being born in high radiation zones, such as in Iraq or in Fukushima, in that area. And they have serious problems with the genetic template, and this can fix that. Do we see this now? Interestingly enough, we do. Hands-on healing can do this. The hands are acting as longitudinal wave antennas. In other words, when you're putting your hands on someone, the longitudinal waves that are being produced, especially from the right and left hemispheres of the brain, are actually traveling down the spinal column through the hands. And there are some people that did actually produce instrumentation that measured this. I believe George Egley did something similar to this with the Egley wheel. So it actually measures psychic potential and intent. But other people have as well. The people that are into psychotronics or radionics have also got some interesting instrumentation for this, but it's real. I mean, it actually is there. And I also have longitudinal wave detectors that I also have constructed. And it can actually take the longitudinal wave that's being output by the body, and it'll throw it on an oscilloscope. And it's very interesting to see what kind of waveforms you're getting that way. Okay, so again, intent can act as a quantum potential steering into the past.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Eliza.
Sure.
Your PowerPoint presentation is stuck on the first page, the title page, and it's not moving. Are you showing some pictures as you speak? Have you gone to number 2?
Oh yeah, I'm on the third One already.
It wasn't moving.
Yeah. So, okay, that's a problem. Okay. So, let's see. Do you see the title? Do we see this now, or
I think
is
you
it
have
not
to click
working?
on
You're on the practical regeneration page.
Oh, okay. So it's not sharing. Oh, we got a
No,
problem here.
it is sharing. You just need to click on number 2, number 3, number 4 as we go.
Okay.
Either that or
you just
scroll
need
to
to,
the
My
right side.
screen should be
I'm
working.
not sure
yeah,
what
you just need to click the number 2 and see if it's coming on.
I already have. I mean, it's
Oh.
not going
on
through.
the left column.
Okay.
Physically click on slide number 2, number 3.
Okay, it's not working. Well, let me stop sharing and then I'll do it again.
Okay.
Okay. So let me try this again. Okay, is it working?
Yeah, we see it's moved now to where you are at.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
So that should be a do we see this now on the title.
Yeah, we see the title. Do we see this?
Okay, good. So anyway, meditation or prayer circles can do the same thing. Ingo Swann and other psychics have proven this in various studies. So how does this work? The nitty gritty. The CPT invariance, charge parity time. This is interesting because the expansion, CPT EGS, charge parity time entropy, gravity, energy, gravity, and entropy, means that if you change one, you invert one, you change them all. This applies to both matter and energy. So this is incredibly powerful. So, okay, the nitty gritty. Electromagnetic energy alternates from positive and negative polarities. The positive side of the wave moves in negative time, and the negative side of the wave moves in positive time. If both sides are equal, there's no change, which is what we normally see with most electromagnetics. If one side of the wave has a higher amplitude in positive time, then positive time flow and entropy results, disease, aging, death. The positive time bias is in every electromagnetic wave that we're familiar with. This is what carries entropy, and this is what causes aging and everything from steel rusting to things falling apart, essentially. If we change the bias and the negative time side is stronger, then healing and regeneration results. Okay, this is how healing with magnets works. One pole is positive time biased, and the other pole is negative. One pole accelerates growth, and the other has a healing property. The negative time side of the wave hooks into the negative time side of the matter wave. It transfers energy. This technique can also be used for energy generation, negative resistors and cold electricity, the stuff that Patrick's talking about. It's the same type of technology, but there are different types of cold electricity. There's more than just one, and you have to be careful about your terminologies. Okay, transverse EM waves indirectly access the negative time domain. Okay, this is interesting as well because there are certain charged plasmas that will produce a negative bias, and that can produce healing. George Lakhovsky with a multi-wave oscillator also found that there was something odd going on with his with the biasing on his wave outputs. And it's been speculated, and I think it will prove out true, that what he's doing is he's putting a negative time bias on the wave, which is producing the effect. Now, longitudinal EM waves, as well as time density waves, use a more direct route. Longitudinal waves are commonly referred to as scalar waves. And there's a lot of scalar wave healing devices. Some are confused with radionic devices. But this one, I'm particularly looking at longitudinal waves and active devices rather than passive ones, so, like a pendant that you might wear, that picks up your output and then conditions it and retransmits it back. And there was a pendant similar to that that was mentioned in Radu Cinemar's books, in Transylvania Sunrise and a few others. So I think that's how some of these crystal healing systems work. That if it has a very strong efficiency for producing a time-reversed wave, then it's something that's considered self-pumped. That means that if it's pumped by the longitudinal wave output of the body itself, then it will produce a negative time signature and feed it back into the body, producing not only a healing effect, but a time reversal effect and a kind of a rejuvenation going on. So it's nothing mystical. I mean, it's actually hard science as far as how this stuff works. Okay, now let's get into the Bearden Provisional Patent, because there's a lot of interesting stuff going on there. Okay, so slide 100, if everything's updating correctly, I'm not sure if it is. Is it? Are you seeing the how does this work page?
Yes, we do.
Okay, good. Okay, so 100 shows how we turn a transverse wave into a longitudinal wave. Two waves of equal amplitude superimposed over each other in phase but opposite directions, bidirectional. Okay, 150 shows the resultant longitudinal wave, acting like a sound wave, but with a tremendously higher velocity. Now, when 150 and 170 are superimposed, those are the two longitudinal waves that are, doing this sort of a thing. Okay, the longitudinal wave turns into a time density wave. This wave directly accesses the time domain. Modulating the time domain can also change probabilities. This is called a Heisenberg Compensator. Here's the interesting part too. Okay, Werner Heisenberg predicted, well, I mean, the theory of uncertainty is based on positive time for an assumption. In fact, most of physics is based on a positive time assumption. If you have negative time, then you have negative uncertainty or determinacy. That means that you can actually steer something into a known past, and that will manifest. But that past will be superimposed over the future, not the future, but the present body. So this can also be done with electromagnetic patterning, with holographic patterning, and you can work some real magic with this stuff. And keeping in mind that this is magic in the Arthur C. Clarke definition, that a sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. This is still technology. But other people would think that, it really does look like magic. Okay, changing the probability in healing means that when you time reverse the condition, the probability of recurrence will vanish. Remember, you're juggling probabilities as well. It also diminishes half-lives of elements that decontaminate nuclear waste or accidents. So that means that using this technology on nuclear waste can do one of two things. One, you can accelerate the decay rate all the way down to lead. And people like John Hutchinson have done this, and other people, Paul Brown, have done this with photon treatment and very, very short wavelengths X-ray treatment. And photon remediation is what he called it. And you can do it the other way. Number two is you can also, for the radionuclides that are already decayed, or, you can actually cause them to back up in their timeline, and then they will actually transmute into its parent elements instead of the daughter radionuclides. And that means that it will have a tremendously higher half-life. So you could do either way. So you can either undo the nuclear fission, which is remarkable in itself, or you can accelerate the decay rate right down to lead. Okay, and also shifting genetic probabilities can create a shuffling effect that can eliminate defects. You can also do this down at the nuclear level, where you're shifting around the probabilities down at the nucleon level, and that'll also change the way elements decay. You can also cause elements to flip nucleons and do transmutation. Okay, the negative time domain reverses everything in the CPT-EGS. So uncertainty becomes determinism, which is what I mentioned earlier. Okay, another way of producing a longitudinal wave is seen below in figure 4b. Now, this is actually something that's used in real healing instruments. The isomorphic nonlinear medium, that can be a crystal. And this can be quartz crystal, doped quartz crystal, you know, the material's doping it to increase its nonlinearity. Okay, two waves with two differing frequencies are input into a nonlinear medium. This combines and produces a phase conjugate replica at the crossing points of the waves inside the crystal. I think I need to define phase conjugation and what a phase conjugate replica is. Now, what that is basically when you have an incoming wave into the material, for example, a disease waveform from the body, or something that's highly chaotic, then what happens is that it will take the chaos part of that wave, because the chaos is moving in positive time. I'm sorry to be overly technical, but I can't help that. But anyway, so the chaos is moving in positive time. Always remember that. If you move it back in time, that chaos will vanish. It will recohere itself. These devices, the phase conjugation devices, are already being used in all of the optical networks right now. Because, you know, what is distortion? Distortion is chaos. So if you produce if you run it through a phase conjugate filter, then you're going to filter out all the chaos, and you're going to amplify the original signal. This is being done now. So all I'm doing is saying that this can actually be applied toward healing and not just communication networks. And it has been done. It does work. That's all I can say about that one right now. Okay, so by phase conjugation also, by definition, a phase conjugate wave is in phase spatially. It's 180 degrees out of phase in the time dimension. That's very important. So it looks like it's in phase spatially, but it's completely out of phase in the time dimension. And this is something we cannot see. So not shown is a magnetic field that polarizes the mixing inside the medium. This is needed to plane polarize the waves. If the waves have a random polarization, this also increases the chaos and decreases the output. Found it out the hard way. So you got to polarize it. Okay. The frequencies are chosen for their bioactive properties. The waves also have a negative bias in the time domain. So you can see in figure 4b, 1 and 2, that's 475 and 485, are going in. And these are two different frequencies. Goes into the crystal. You have a filter to block the transverse waves. It can be anything. Copper plate, works well. And then what comes out is the bidirectional longitudinal electromagnetic standing wave pair, which is, the two waves, the wave that is coming from the body and it's combining with what's coming out of the crystal, and it's producing a healing effect. It's actually correcting the chaos that's in the body. It's mitigating it, it's reducing it. Okay. Plasmas can also be used, as seen in figure 8b. The plasma tube is used as a mixer. Priori did this with great success, and that is no understatement, because he was curing cancer, and the only reason that he was shut down is because the French Academy of Sciences were pressured by the pharmaceutical industry to shut him down. And that's what happened. So if we repeat his experiments, we have to be very careful how we present this, because it would be very easy to be shut down by using the government to do so, especially in the United States. The FDA is famous for doing this sort of thing way too many times. The individual countries, other companies too, but the individual countries also have different regulations that are trying to be incorporated into the alimentarius and the Codex Alimentarius, and that is also problematic. So if we do it, we're going to have to be doing it on a grassroots basis. Okay, so that means that, and you can see in the diagram, you've got a gas-filled tube, which is plasma, and you have the multiply structured frequency sources. Now, when you put the magnets in there, if you're biasing it using the negative time pole of the magnet, this is how you're putting the negative time bias in. That's very important. So anyway, that's I think I let out a secret there. But anyway, just go for it if you want to do it. Just make sure you use the right side of the magnet. Okay. This is another system. This is a working method of a larger scale machine. 1010 can be crystal rods of nonlinear media or magnetically polarized plasma. That will work. The person to be treated is in between the rods and the time reversal zone. These rods can be inside of an enclosure, such as a wolf tanning bed. Amplitude of time reversal is proportional to the input power level. So the practical limit on that is about 1,000 to 1. And it's not instantaneous healing, it's greatly accelerated healing. And I would predict that this is also producing a massive amount of stem cells as well. Because what's happening is that some of the, this was known by Robert Beck, that when he was putting just microvoltages inside of bone breaks, that the red blood cells were actually de-differentiating into stem cells, and they would migrate over redifferentiate into bone cells, and they were producing the healing effect. So the first step in this is the de-differentiation of probably red blood cells, since that's the most common pathway for this happening. So when we actually do the work on verifying the effect, we're probably going to have to use a dark field microscope and find out how much of the red blood cells are being converted to stem cells. Now, we don't want to throw somebody in a healing crisis and get the red cell count just crashing, which theoretically is possible if it goes too fast. Okay, this one you can see it has a time density wave generator added to it. The generator can be thought of as a Heisenberg compensator. That's what I mentioned earlier. So this will produce a steering effect into a known pathway to a previous state. The person to be treated is in between the rods and the time reversal zone. These rods can be inside an enclosure such as a wolf tanning bed. Again, the amplitude of the time reversal is proportional to the input power level, but with greater efficacy, because now you can actually selectively steer the entire body or the organism, or even, I mean, matter to be treated into a known past. Would this produce rust and corrosion reversal? Probably so, because it acts right down on the atomic level and down into the quantum level. So this is not only a healing system, this could also be used as a system to regenerate equipment. So that if your equipment is damaged due to aging, I mean, many component failures are due to this, then you could actually regenerate your equipment just as well as you can, you know, a body. Or I think another pathway for this, which wouldn't cause a great deal of furor, would be to probably have a strategic partnership with veterinarians. I mean, who doesn't want to have their pets healthy and well and with them for a long time? I mean, our dogs and cats are only living for 10 to 20 years. What would happen if you could regenerate your dog or your cat so that it's with you for a longer time? I mean, they would probably enjoy it as well. So I mean, that would probably be a pathway that would be less controversial. Okay, so this is the time density wave generator, a 1110. And this generator can be thought of as a Heisenberg compensator. Not shown is another component that can input second order modulation into the mixer. That's the one that actually does the selective steering into the past or into other probable alternate presents, so that you can actually change the pathway of the disease progression so that it never occurs again. Okay, frequencies can be as low as radio frequencies, RF, and can go upward into the optical domain or beyond into X-ray for decontamination of nuclear wastes. This would be incredibly fast if we did that. So someone asked me if you could do this with what's happening with Fukushima. The answer would be that it would take a rather large satellite in a polar orbit, and which would be over the Pacific or over the entire planet for that matter. And then every time it made a pass, then it would be producing this decontamination wave that would be moving over and inside of the ocean. So, and yeah, the short answer is yes, it can be done. Just a matter of power, really. Okay. This is another embodiment of the technology. If they could decontaminate large areas if needed and correct for genetic corruption. it's also possible mounted on an aircraft or satellite, like I mentioned earlier. So this is basically what you would see inside of the satellite or inside of an aircraft. I mean, if you're flying over an area, you can actually decontaminate the area by flying over it. As in the previous version, frequencies can be as low as RF and go upward into the optical domain or beyond into X-ray. So it's just a matter of what you want to treat. Okay, this is another embodiment. It can decontaminate smaller areas and correct for genetic corruption. And this could actually correct for example, if genetic corruption is noted inside of in vitro fertilization, then it can correct for that. So this is also an important technology for that. Now this is also, it appears to be similar to the Royal Rife technology, with the difference being the transmitter-receiver pairs. Royal Rife had an omnidirectional transmitter. This one would be two directional transmitters specifically tuned. So as in the previous version, I mean, it's pretty much the same thing. It can do the same thing as the other versions. Okay. So we can also do transmutation, of course, which I mentioned earlier. And it can facilitate cold fusion. This can lend itself to clean energy power generation of the thermal kind. It can also transmute radioactive contamination inside the body or poisonous elements into harmless ones. So that means that, let's say you were contaminated by, for example, in the Gulf War illness syndrome, these people were contaminated with depleted uranium. And what it could do is convert the uranium right down the chain into lead. Of course, you'd have lead to deal with, and you'd have to get that out. No pun intended. But it's easier than getting rid of a radioactive substance. So then traditional chelation can work for something like that. Okay. So in the lower part, we see that we can transmute hydrogen into deuterium. Something similar to this, I believe, is happening inside of the Rossi system and inside of other people like Hyperion and some other cold fusion systems. It's interesting to note that some of the cold fusion people are actually using double helix antennas, which will produce longitudinal waves. So why would they need longitudinal waves? Well, if you combine both longitudinal waves, you get the time density wave, which is the holy grail for all of this, which means now you can do transmutation at will. And that doesn't mean just hydrogen into deuterium or hydrogen into helium. This means that you could produce energy from any radio or any element on the periodic table that's next to one another. So these are nuclear isomers, and isomers are simply elements that are next to one another. For example, nickel and copper, or there's too many to mention, but the interesting one is mercury and gold. Just leave it at that. Already been done. Okay. Consequences. It's a major disruptive technology. Big pharma is already obsolete. This means enormously extended lifespans. Okay, so if we can do regeneration, remember when I said that the maximum rate is about a 1,000 to 1 ratio? What this means is that if you slept in one of these systems at the, the maximum possible rate, practical rate, then it would literally peel back 1 year for every 8.766 hours. So that means that if you're in this regeneration clinic for 3 weeks, then 21 years can be reset. So I can see people just going for the clinic as a maintenance basis once a year. In that case, then the aging process is effectively stopped, because every year that you go back, it just resets it back another year. So is this practical immortality? That's another discussion we can have later, because it's within our grasp using this technology. So big oil is also obsolete because of the cold fusion aspects and transmutation. But what would they do to oppose this? 3 letters, FDA, for the States. There are other organizations in Europe and other countries that will oppose this, as the same thing that happened with France. With France, I mean, they caved into the big pharma, and we will see that happen if we go above board with this one. This technology has to be underground, because it's so disruptive to their bottom line that they would not allow this out in the open. Okay, weapons tech is also obsolete, as is nuclear energy. Why do I say this? For the simple fact that all you'd have to do is just zap a missile and turn its warhead into lead. Somebody's already done this, and this was an incident that happened back in the 80s. There was an overflight in Colorado, and there was a blue beam that came out, struck one of the missiles, and for whatever reason, I mean, they said that all the sensors just went dead, so they thought that the sensors weren't dead. So they open up they send out the warhead to be tested, and they said, well, what is this, some kind of a big joke? I mean, there's lead in here instead of the fission core. Well, somebody deactivated it, so that means that somebody either up there or somebody who already has this technology has used it. Once this proliferates, that means that nuclear weapons will be obsolete because they can be deactivated at a distance. This has enormous implications, because right now the whole planet is being held hostage with this nuclear nightmare. And when you can flip nucleons around at will and transmute things at will, that means that these fission devices are basically just play toys. We're really in the kindergarten as far as civilizations go. And we're not even a type 1 civilization. We're a type 0. Michio Kaku mentioned this. So a type 1 civilization will have this technology. If we graduate into a type 1 civilization, we have to have this technology. And that means that there's going to have to be changes in the political structures, monetary structures, practically every structure. So, the big question, how do we implement this and get around the suppression? I have a presentation for this. It's called Politics and Energy. Stay tuned, it's coming. Okay, transhumanism is also obsolete. When the real thing is better than plastic and metal and can regenerate indefinitely, it's superior to machinery. Now, okay, we can regenerate machinery with this. It's easier to do it with living tissue. So that's another important point. And continued. Oh, this graphic that you see is a Stanford torus, and this is a proposed space colony by T.A. Heppenheimer in Colonies in Space. Okay, if genetic reshuffling takes place, then evolution as we know it is obsolete. Why do I say this? This means that whenever, if there's enough regeneration energy that's already loaded up in the organism and it's challenged, then the shuffling will happen, the reshuffling will happen spontaneously. So I don't know anybody who's, well, we'll talk about that one later. So anyway, how long do you want to live? Forever. It's a possibility. There are spiritual consequences to that one. I mean, would you want to basically, would there be eugenics clinics for something like that? Or how would the society handle it? Would death be the equivalent of amnesia and regeneration? Would that be an option? I mean, just doing a memory wipe and say, okay, well, and there you go, and you'll just go on your merry way. And that's another possibility as well. Then there's the whole reproduction problem. Okay, sexual reproduction is needed, otherwise a growth curve goes negative over time. If you have a society that is immortal, then obviously if people have accidents and they cannot be regenerated or reconstituted, then through attrition, you wind up with a negative growth curve. So that means that you're probably going to have to, there's going to be a replacement going on over time. And instead of having children over your lifetime, your normal lifetime, you'll probably see children being born over, say, 100 or 200 year spans. So that means that you would have much fewer young people in the society, but this also means that we'll have a complete change as far as longevity of technology. Clapboard houses will be obsolete. I mean, for example, I mean, if you have a device, something like that. I mean, if you have a life expectancy of, say, 1,000 to 2,000 years, and you're looking at something that only lasts a few years, that's not going to be acceptable any longer. That means that what we're going to see is a technology where things will last a long, long time because people are. Okay, and in the immortality factor, Osborne Segerberg analyzes the length of the life versus doing something risky like going to war. He comes to the conclusion that the longer the lifespan, the less likely warfare is possible. This will also be a major change. I mean, if you're going to get blown up in a war and you have a possible 2,000 years ahead of you, are you going to do it? Probably not. And the longer you live, the less risky stuff you're going to be doing. So that means that warfare is going to become obsolete for the better part. Politicians that advocate warfare will become obsolete because the longer you live, obviously, the more wisdom you accumulate. I mean, we're talking about getting rid of Alzheimer's here, so you're not going to forget about this stuff unless you want to forget. So that means that there'll be a lot more people becoming very, very wise. And that means that this planetary con game that we're dealing with is going to be over. That's what the powers that be don't want to happen. That's the resistance to this technology. Okay. Will this result in a static society or simply a stable one? I I think it'll be more stable rather than static. I think people will still be creating because for most of us, there's an inboard pressure to create. There's a will to create. And that means that it probably will not be static. But at the same time, there won't be change for change's sake. The changes that will be made will be well thought out ahead of time. So there won't be mistakes like Fukushima, for example, or other things. In other words, the childhood of humanity will be coming to an end. Not childhood is not the childhood and that in Arthur C. Clarke's book, which is a completely different tack. I mean, what we're talking about is an entire species becoming wise and mature and joining the galactic community as a result. If this is implemented along with free energy and quantum scale 3D printing, where is the incentive to create? It's within all of us. The answer to this may be in economics. If human creative energy is the only true value in civilization, that will be sought after. And I also discussed this in politics and energy in an upcoming talk. And the economics of large-scale materializing of anything that you want means that the creative energy is the only thing that cannot be replicated. So that is going to be the only valuable commodity in the civilization. Now, as is wisdom, as is anything else that someone that has lived a long time and wants to share with it's going to be a completely different ballgame, folks. It really is. Okay. Human life will have a greater value. There's a big difference between a labor unit and a fountainhead of creative energy. That's what we all are. We have to recognize that. In the present pre-civilized society, people are worth more dead than alive. Unfortunately, this is true from the TDA data, the Treasury direct accounts. Essentially what these things are their insurance, and the beneficiaries are the governments. So we need to turn this around. But if people don't die, then, I mean, it's going to completely unravel that con game as well. Okay, would it be crime as we know it without any motivation, economic or otherwise? Perhaps only crimes of passion. But if the victim could be resurrected, what would the crime be? Maybe attempted murder, the motive, possibly. In the book 3001, Arthur C. Clarke talks about those not wanting to be part of that society breaking away and making their own way. This is how breakaway societies and civilizations are formed. I predict that if this technology continues to be suppressed, that a breakaway civilization will be using it if they're not already doing so now. I suspect that that is already the case. There are breakaway civilizations that are using this. And in a type 4 civilization that spans time and space, where each individual has all their needs met, no government as we know it is possible. Only a loose anarchic confederation is seen. A council of elders is consulted for moral matters, but no edicts can be enforced. And this gets into personal sovereignty, individual sovereignty. Once the individual sovereignty is recognized, then governments become obsolete. It's a natural evolution. Okay, this is why we are being held back. Type 1 and above civilizations have a holographic structure. Hierarchical top-down governments do not work there. Okay, and now we're going to future presentations. Okay, types 1 to 4 civilizations will be examined, with emphasis on sociological impacts of large-scale colonization with advanced tech. And that's some of the tech that I mentioned earlier. Another topic will be governments and what they really are versus what has been sold to us. In politics and energy, a plan for insertion of key technologies to accelerate the transition toward a type 1 civilization will be examined. The reasons for holding back sociologic progress will also be examined from the perspective of a parasitic elite class, which we have on this planet currently. Space colonies will be examined that are permanently off-planet. Planetary engineering will be discussed. The holographic nature of reality will be examined with a focus on the vacuum as an embedded processing and projecting system. And this is getting into things such as the Mandela effect and others. So these are just a few things that I'll be discussing later. And, oh, okay, that's the last slide. So I'll stop sharing the screen and open up for questions. Okay.
Thank you, Elizabeth. That was quite in-depth. I was going to start.
Microphone over.
Do we have an echo?
Yeah, that's an echo. That's an echo, Fred. I pass over the
to Mr. Dr. Fresfrezo right now, so he's taking over the talking stick. Thank you.
I can put my earbuds in and see if that helps too. Thank you.
Okay. Every once in a while I get a feedback because I'm running two systems. Okay.
Okay, let's see if this is working.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
Super. When you first started your talk, you started on the 150 frequencies versus 170.
Those are the slide numbers.
Oh, slide numbers.
Right, right. I mean,
okay.
Those are the objects that Bearden had in his original slides, so I just kept those.
Okay, because I was wondering is when we talk about setting up these frequencies, we should be more in tune with actually measuring them for figuring out what we're going to use for output, or?
Oh yeah, yeah. In fact, I mean, there's several bioactive frequencies that are out there. A big one is the one that Priori was using. He was using 2.4 gigahertz and 9.4. And it's interesting to note that a lot of the cordless phones that are out in the US are using 9.4 gigahertz, which is part of the bandwidth of the human immune system. And if you want to jam the human immune system, use those frequencies. Out of the billions of frequencies that are out there, they chose those frequencies. Why?
Personally, I turned off the MagRav systems in the house for about 5 months to see what the residual effect was after I turned them off. I have one of the larger of the MagRav systems that are on the planet that I built with the heavier gauge wires and larger. And this last time I went and rewired it, so I flipped the center coil of the 3 so it was working in opposition in its frequency, so that I basically was setting up a scaler. The interesting part about it is within 2 weeks of hooking it back up, I'm feeling much better. And the checks that we've done with small devices looking at frequencies such as cell phone frequencies, modems and stuff like that, we don't, it doesn't seem to be affecting the space. I mean, with the MagRav units running, it seems to cancel the readable on the scale. So anyway, it was just one of those interesting side points. For those that want to ask Elizabeth a question, please raise your hand and I will unmute you. I've got a few more questions, but I can hold them off for later. Just switch it over to mute.
I got a question.
Go
I
ahead.
don't mean to interrupt,
Sure.
Fres. I don't mean to interrupt. I
Yes,
took
go ahead.
over the hosting because
Excellent.
when you are chairing, it's easier for me to manage for you when you speak, so you
Thank
can
you.
concentrate. Thank you. But since I'm on the microphone right now, I would like to thank Elizabeth. It's such a wonderful presentation.
Well,
Gosh,
thank you.
it's really down my street. Thank you. It's so amazing. Thank you. Over to you now, Fres.
Okay, go ahead. We'll call you neurological because that's your handle
Yeah.
today.
No, this is James. So Elizabeth, what can you comment about the Therapy device? Because apparently this device was is based on the Priory machine, and there's
It's actually
because the
it
power,
has-
the voltage is so high.
right.
Go ahead.
Okay, so Priory had a magnetic field polarizing the plasma, and I actually told Roger and Dan that you've got to polarize the plasma. In fact, in the beginning, they were calling it the magnetically activated plasma, or MAC, which is fine and dandy. They didn't put the magnets in. They have a piece missing. It's not a true Priory device, no, because they don't have the magnets in there.
Well, could if someone was to visit one of these centers where they have one of these devices, could you bring your own magnets, and would that help? Or it has to be into the machine.
They might be a little touchy about fiddling with their tubes. It has to. You have to know that it has to be ringed by a series of magnets. Each magnet has to have the negative time pole pointed inward, which I believe is the South Pole. So I've tried it with both. The South Pole works really much better. I've built a couple experiments on this. And polarizing it with the South Pole tends to work a lot better. So, yeah.
Well, what is the net effect to that device? Would it actually damage someone, their DNA?
I don't think so. It's more like Lakovsky MWO. It's a series of frequencies that are in there, and they call it the 5 because they're 5 ratio frequencies. And some of those will happen anyway inside of the spark gap of the Lakovsky. And Dan just decided to put a frequency cascade in there that he decided would work, and that's the reason he did it. So
Can you comment about Dan Winter? Is he? Have you reached out to him and let him become aware that that device is not exactly based on the right technology?
they know. In fact, when I talked to Roger Green about this, I said, Roger, there's a problem with your map system. So what's that? Well, you're calling it magnetically activated plasma, but there's no magnets. So, oh, that's just a marketing problem. We'll call it something else. It became the Therapy right after that. They know about it, and they really don't care about modifying it. So,
do you know why? Well, I mean, how difficult it is to just get some neodymium magnets from China? I mean, maybe $50 extra cost. Put them in there.
it's not that difficult. No. It's for the configuration that they have. Instead of using a ring tube, they just have these big tubes that are in there. Magnetic fields tend to trap ions, and putting the magnets around that, it probably will work much better than what they've got, but they're not interested in doing it.
Now, is there a way we could maybe charge up water or crystals in this field and then distribute that, so that way you can maybe keep the modality a secret, so to avoid the FDA or whatnot, or regulatory?
Yeah, that's a possibility too, where you can charge up water, and it would be charging up actually down at the quantum level. So if you overcharge it, what would probably happen is that, here's another little thing, is that you're actually charging the mass energy at the same time. So that means that it's going to wind up being a little bit heavier. So it's not going to be like drinking deuterium oxide, but it's going to have quite a kick. So after it interacts with your biology, it's going to start throwing off energy, longitudinal wave as well as transverse. In fact, there was an experiment that was done. This was back in the 80s. And what they did was, they called it laser water, because what they did was, these are two guys that were experimenting with pump dye-lasers, tunable dye-lasers, you know, and they had to flush the tube several times with distilled deionized water. So what they did was, in the final flushes, since, I mean, it's redundant at that point, they actually charged the water up and then drank it. And they reported that at first they had a ringing in the ears, and that whenever their hands went over something that was electrical, you know, like their computer would shock them because they were so sensitive to the electromagnetic field of the computer. Then the ringing gradually turned into a kind of a clairaudience after a while, which scared them. And they stopped drinking it, and then the whole incident became forgotten. But yeah, I mean, it can be done.
Would someone need to send in, say, a saliva sample, and you can measure it, whatever the frequency is, and then create the negative wave, I believe you said, to counteract the effects, and then drink that water? It's sort of like a homeopathic, maybe? Is that how? I don't know.
It's possible, yeah. And if you did it directly, here's what, this is fascinating. Some of these crystals will actually, they'll heterodyne right into the frequencies that need to be used. You don't have to do any tuning. The crystal does it. It's amazing, but it does it all by itself.
So could you just sell these crystals and then maybe put the crystal in a water pitcher? Would that work?
Well, no, not really. I mean, the crystal has to have a pump wave input into it. So it has to be part of the device.
Do you have any devices on hand that you could test this? Just program some water and maybe sell it or provide it?
I'm thinking of doing that with a dark field scope, and probably putting some water and some mix it up with some live cells and see what it does. Because I mean, that'd be the definitive answer. I mean, if it's changing it that way, then definitely we've got something going on.
How would you be able to market it to, say, veterinarians, or what I suggested, maybe horse injuries?
Yeah, there would be a half-life to the water because you're charging it up. So it probably lose its charge over several days. People that are experimenting with this technology have said that once they're charged up with the system, that it gradually bleeds off in time. And it depends on how much charge you put in and the treatment time and how much energy is input. So it will eventually bleed off. In other words, it might have such a short shelf life that you couldn't really sell it. And so we'd have to determine that.
Are you familiar with Willard water?
Oh yeah, I've heard of Willard water. Yeah.
Yeah, apparently that's supposed to re-age. Is that similar to what you're talking about?
Oh no, that's actually changing it chemically. So this one's changing it in a quantum level. In other words, what you're doing is you're basically pumping up the nuclei with longitudinal and time density waves and charging it up. I mean, A nucleon can charge up just like a capacitor. Matter can charge up like a capacitor. The only problem is it bleeds off over time.
There was somebody by the name, I don't know if you remember Jeff Harvey with jefftech.net. He was developing some kind of Uber water that I don't even, I would have to pull up the details because it's been a while, but apparently he was charging like $200-300 a gallon, and he claimed that if you drink it, it would heal all your problems. Is that,
Wow.
are you familiar with Jeff Harvey and the work that he was doing?
No, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, it appears that he was murdered, and then his website just went offline one day, and it's like, well, nobody really, I haven't heard anything from Jeff since then.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if he used something like this as far as the technology.
Well, he was trying to raise like $300,000 to create this special water generator to make this water. And I think he actually got the money, and then he was just getting ready to set up production, and of course he's dead. So
yeah, that just makes my point. They don't want this technology out there. They really don't.
right. There was the guy from who was it that was here a couple weeks prior from James. I'm trying to remember the guy's name, James. Gillian, yeah, he talked about the special water that he got from Washington State. Does anybody remember what that was?
Oh, you mean Andrew Betty?
Is that the water? No, not Andrew. He hold
James
on. Let me
Ganinoto.
Yeah, let me go. I think I might have some. Hold on.
Gordon, James Ganinoto.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll jump in real quick here for a moment. Philosophical question for Elizabeth.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
You mentioned that the incidence of warfare is inverse to the longer life expectancy of the individuals, of the society. Right. When we introduce the regeneration, wouldn't this lead to more risky behavior because of the consequences of the risky behavior?
Well, if you're going to be blown up or disintegrated, then you can't get regenerated. So that's becoming a problem. So
right, James.
Go ahead, James.
James, you were showing Langenberg,
the
Langenberg water, Max Langenberg.
Yeah, James Gillian that suggests that we get some of this because apparently it's charged in a certain method that helps with longevity. Now, I bought like, I don't know, a gallon of this stuff, and it was like $70 with shipping. And, you know, I financially, I can't afford to keep paying that much money for water. But it did seem to energize me. And I really didn't like the effect of it all. It's like the thing. I can't say that that it's solved all my health problems. You know, I'm assuming that if we could create this water, Elizabeth, that had this device, it wouldn't just be longevity, it would also help your health. So, I think
I know a little bit about this. The person who created the water, oxygenated water. Yeah, it's Max Langenberg. He's a prince from Germany. He lives in Oregon. He has a huge big plant there. Apparently, you can when the funding flows through, James, you could ask to start a plant, and he will then help you set up a plant in your area, to produce the oxygenated water. While I'm on the microphone, Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question, or have you not finished with your question yet, Press?
No, I'm fine. Go right ahead.
Okay. Oh, you know what, Elizabeth, it's so wonderful. I mean, you are giving all of us the Light Warriors here. When you talk your talk, it's so encouraging that there is a good future ahead, because you were saying that you suspect there is a breakaway society and there's a breakaway civilization, because otherwise why is it that There is such a thing as the deactivated nuclear, what do you call?
Warhead. Yeah.
Warheads, and also they also deactivated all those depopulation weaponry as well. So it's pretty amazing that you said you are quite sure and you're suspecting that there are breakaway civilizations and societies. Now, I want to say this, all those who are listening out there, okay, if you know of these breakaway civilizations and societies, please, we would like to get in touch. Please get in touch with us, because we are doing something which is going to help free humanity, and we need your help. Thank you.
All right. Next question for Elizabeth, and Crystal will unmute you. Raise your hand, please. Not hearing or seeing anything. Now the question then, currently our current government runs on energy credits that it gets from its citizens in the form of taxes and work and that type of thing. And currently most of the governments around the planet are expending more credits, these energy credits, than they're receiving. Now, eventually, it's going to have to even out one way or the other, whether new technology comes in and replaces it, or the system that they're working on decreases. So it looks like we're on the verge or on the cusp of the necessity for change to go to a different form of energy system. And this is what I'm getting a little bit from your conversation. So it can happen both ways. It doesn't have to be one path or the other. And so in our part of zone, if we work towards the creation of new energy sources, we start to move this society through this transition into your type 1 civilization. That's what I'm understanding you saying.
Sure. Definitely. Yeah.
Crystal, are we seeing anybody else jumping in?
Now, one other thing that I should mention is that if you have free energy and you have quantum materialization or quantum 3D printing, then the entire economy changes, because that means you can replicate anything. I mean, you can replicate dollar bills, euros, and buckets of rubies and sapphires, gold, whatever. So that means that everything that's, all the material commodities that we have are worthless. I mean, they're common as dirt. So it's going to change everything.
One of the interesting things that we have to think about when we get into replicator technology is the not any need for storage of surplus in the line of warehouses of things, because you recycle your whatever item you no longer need. So let's say you had the need for a specialty hammer for a project you're working on and creating something, but after you finish the project, you don't no longer need the hammer. Rather than put it on the shelf that you won't use again for maybe another 20 years, you throw it into the recycle and it gets replicated, ground up and sent back and made into a new set of pliers or something.
Yeah.
So you take up less space. I mean, your actual living space is not filled with, stuff.
Junk. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I've really enjoyed your talk today, and I'm sure those that will be viewing this file and this video later on are going to find it extremely informative. Is there a way that they can contact you, or is it going to be through FESIG? We'll let you and Crystal. Because we're really looking forward to some of the other topics that you've mentioned.
Sure. I've got politics and energy ready to go right now. It's going to be the next one.
Super. Shall we move on to Michael then, Crystal?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay,
We'll
Michael.
wrap up the meeting.
Michael. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Michael. Okay, we got him. There he goes.
Right.
We get into this rarity of creativity, and we had a glimpse at some of the creative items that you made prior to the recording, and I was wondering if you'd be so generous as to show everybody some of the bits of things that you've twisted up and put together and explain what you're doing. Thank you for showing up today.
Right. So basically, I'm a Reiki master. So I do healing. And as Elizabeth was saying, we got energy coming from our hands and our body. So when I create these devices, I put energy inside of it. So when I give it to someone...
May I interrupt a little bit, Brother Michael? I would like to give a little bit of background on our brother here. He had throat cancer. And when he first connected through to FESIG, his voice was
You are really cutting out, Crystal.
Himself, my goodness, his voice is so good now. I would say, sorry, my internet connection. You can't hear me, right? I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you. Carry on, Michael.
Now.
Yeah. Thank you.
No.
I was just explaining that.
I was saying, without talking about.
Carry on. Sorry. No, I was just explaining that Michael
was saying we're talking about scalar waves.
His voice getting lower.
Are you ready?
Go ahead. Go ahead, Michael.
So I was thinking about what Elizabeth was talking about, scalar wave, and most of the devices I talk about, and this gentleman was talking about charging your water and stuff like that. These devices that I create change the frequency of your water. And vibrating. They are using the hot wire in the devices, which is the male side of things. And everyone forget about the blue wire, the neutral wire. So that is how I connect my devices. I connect the blue wire, which is neutral, which is the female, because I deal with the female side of things, yeah. Which most things is all male dominated, so the hot wire is man, so I don't touch the hot wire. I reverse the process. Yeah. So, and also the devices that I'm making, because of the energy that is coming from me, when I create it and I give it to someone, they got a piece of me, and then they use it, and they got the key inside of them through their intention to activate it. But what I'm really doing at present is creating these crowns that you see on my head, which you can meditate with, and also the bracelets, which give off this scalar wave that protect your whole body. You can even take it off and put your glass of drink on the inside and change the frequency of the water. Now I'm making this for someone. I'll show you. I was showing you earlier. I'm in the process of making it. So let me show you. You wear it on your head. It's the crown. Yeah.
Well, it's
Your
like
work
a
is
hairband.
very...
And you can also turn it into a necklace. Yeah. What you put under that, the energy come from it. But you got to be very careful, because it could be very intense for some people. But I also, with Mr. Cash technology, I also nanocoat some of them. I put some of them in herbal mix. Let me get a different one and show you. I'm coming.
I say his work is very beautiful. When it comes to his wire turning, it's right up there with some of the better jewelers I've seen. So I'm very impressed with the quality of his work.
See, now look, Here are some more devices that I create. You got, these ones are done with herbs, different herbs, to change the color of it. And then I put a shungite in every fears. But the woman, they also wear a fears earring. So here the next one I've got here. See, this is a different color. And I put a pyramid in it. You can wear it opposite way. So, you know, once you're wearing this, you're fully protected and, yeah, you're on a high. Yeah.
Gorgeous work. Gorgeous work.
I also have the pyramid that I make for the wrist. Yeah, pyramid bracelet.
Okay, you can send that one to me right now.
Beam up, Scotty.
Me too.
So then now, the gentleman was talking about changing his water with crystal. Now, you know, crystal is is an entity in itself. So we got different crystals inside of here. In the device, so you can put them around your home. You can put them down, you can put your glass of water on top of it and change the frequency. So you will have pure water to your intentions. So we are going too far with these technologies here. And with my intention, when I create it and send it to you and tell you exactly what to do, you just put your intention in, place your food on top of it and change it. So you don't need to be worrying about getting pure water and stuff. It's already inside of us. You know, and I've got this gift to create these things to give you, look, you got the key inside of you. Just put your intention and do it. Yeah. So let me share the next one. So,
I have a question
yes,
for you, Michael.
yes,
you make these beautiful creative devices. You sell them, don't you? So
yes, large.
may I suggest listeners and viewers, you can go to Michael Melchizedek Moore's Facebook and contact him so you can buy these devices off him.
So I guess you all know what the Triskelion.
Yeah, Michael, M-I-C-H-A-E-L, Melchizedek, M-E-L-C-H-I-Z-E-D-E-K, Moore, M-O-O-R. Go to his Facebook and you can contact him to buy this device.
I also got the brain. And in the brain, you got twisted coil with the shungite and different crystals that you can wear. So you protect your aura field when you go out on the road. But this device in the crown, what I must let you know, because of the EMF wave that is coming from the telephone towers, it's good to always wear one of these in your head. Now, I am a hat designer, and I just created this hat. Yeah, but inside of this hat, I've got a copper ring. So when I wear it, and I go out, I am well protected. Yeah, always. So, so these are the things that we got to know. The copper is very good. And all this EMF wave and what is going on, you have one of these rings on your head and you're well away. You don't need to worry. So that's why you saw me sitting there with my crown and I never leave and go anywhere without my ring. I got too many things to show you. I'm going to show you one more device that, which is quite new. Yeah, sorry. 1 second.
What I would like the folks to observe is the change of light around Michael's device when it comes in contact with his cameras. Yeah, it's quite interesting.
We got this, I call this one, the CCC. Yeah, this is the device that you wear around the ears. You got crystals in here, and crystal in here. You place it around your ears. Yeah, so you place the crystal is fitted within your eardrum. And then you got a spiral at the back of your neck, your spinal cord. Keep you grounded, yeah. So it's look like a foam, yeah. But so these things is good too. Sorry. Yeah, so
I want you to play with one more of your devices because I love what happens with the camera when you bring it in. Bring in one of your magic wands, please.
I'm coming back.
Yeah, please.
This is my mel phone. This is the new phone. You can also use this to charge up your water, place in your glass of water and change the frequency water. But this is a phone to connect to the higher level. You got crystal inside. You can see.
You remember what Elizabeth was saying? Creativity in humanity cannot be replicated, so it is a very valuable attribute.
Yeah, as Elizabeth is saying, this is what I hear Elizabeth know exactly. These are the things that you can use, but your intention, like my intention, I call this the Mel T44. Yeah, and one time I'm meditating, I'm communicating. Hey, what's happening? How's it going? Yeah. And I'm just in my own zone, and I got a few of my people that want the Mel phone. So this is the Mel phone. So you can turn it, you can meditate with it. You can sit down and you can hold it, and you just relax yourself. And go wherever you want to go. Now, let me show you one more one. Do you want to see the next one there?
Yeah, we want to see the wand. Come on, we got to see the wand.
Me too. Bring in the wand.
Because at first it's just you think it's just the wand, but bring it up and talk to and show what it does to your screen. Go ahead.
Merlin's wand.
You're gonna have to talk.
I'm gonna show you our next one now. It's the longer one. See, now I've got this one, which is the eyeball.
Wow.
And they're all filled with crystal. Then you got this lotus flower one here.
Beautiful.
And it's covered with salt. Then you got this one.
So you use the resin that makes the orgonites?
Yes, it's resin. Yeah, with copper and shungite and quartz crystal. And,
Michael, one question. Do you still use the nano coating of the nano coating, or you use GANs? You still continue to use those things?
Yeah. You look. This is part nano coating. Yeah, and I use herbs and stuff, and I create my own armos, and I stick the device into the armos. Yeah. And chain like this one here. See, look, this was placed into the armos. And then I put coconut oil over it. Yeah.
So you place coconut oil over the top of it.
Well, yeah, they know about me. In Mr. Kesh, they know me, Coconut King. Coconut oil.
That's cool songs.
You know, but these must place them on your head. See, this is again. It's a crown. See, look, it's a crown, but it's not just a crown. It is also a necklace. And it's not just that way, you wear this way too. So you have a different look. So you also, you know, so it's a very deep device, you know. But I got thousands of pieces and thousands of different creations. It's like I don't stop creating this, you know. It just
Well,
what
thank you. Thank you very much. It's been really delightful to have you with us this afternoon or this end of this broadcast. I've thoroughly enjoyed being here, and I love your work and how gorgeous your twistings and turnings are. They're very pretty. And is there anyone that has a real quick question for Michael before we destroy his voice?
Yeah, this is the.
Well, I can say one last thing. That is, Michael has not only healed his voice, but my goodness, he looks younger as well. I think it's
Yeah, I'll be 60 next year.
Well done, Michael.
Thank you.
Okay, Crystal, I'm going to turn it back over to you to close up the meeting.
Oh, okay. Now we go around the table. Thank you, Fred, for chairing the second half of the meeting so beautifully. Let's go around the table. Anyone has got anything to say? Oh, I see Daniel, you're there quietly in the background. I would have thought that you would want to ask a couple of questions because this is down your alley as well. I unmute you. Asif, you have anything to say to Elizabeth or a question that you would like to ask? Oh, I forgot. He might not have a microphone because he's probably using his just his mobile phone. But we can still hear you, you know, if you speak into the mobile. Okay, we move on to the next one. Elizabeth, you have anything that you want to say to wrap up? Anything that you want to say to finish off before we close the meeting? And on behalf of everyone, we'd like to thank you for a lovely, wonderful presentation, which is really, really down our street. And we have so much of the hope for the positive devices and technologies to come our way soon. Yoo-hoo! So we can have this, turn this planet around into a paradise. Right. So, and you need not worry about aging, no diseases anymore. And oh, it's just so sweet to hear what you're saying. It's just such a wonderful news. Anyway, so we move on to, well, Michael, you had your say. Press, you want to say anything lastly before we close?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
What about James? Hey, James, bro. You asked some very good questions just now. Perhaps you want to say anything that is in your mind before we close the meeting? Anything else?
Yeah, well, I was able to talk to, I don't even know if I'm allowed to, I don't know how much I can share, but I was able to communicate to Jacob Rothschild through a channel means. And I was asking him about some of these exotic technologies. Why do you keep trying to suppress it? And he claims that his bloodline is not suppressing it. It was actually, more specifically, he pointed out the DuPonts. And I'm sure there's other or groups within the Illuminati and high levels. So, and he wanted to kind of clear up his family's image, but I guess the point of the matter is that this whole issue of the disclosure is so complex that we as a race of humans need to learn to have forgiveness. Maybe they were involved, maybe they weren't, but I think it's best not to be angry and just be willing to accept the new technologies as they come and to work together as a human race to help lift up humanity and let go of the anger of the past. That's all I can really comment about that.
Wow, that's so cool. James, I have a question for you, James. Well, with your connections from the secret space program with Peter from the ACIO. You have a lot of information there regarding the release of the SSP technologies, but here Elizabeth is talking about the technology is already here, and the breakaway civilizations and societies are already deactivating all those weaponry that is harmful to humanity. So what say you about that? Do you have any hearsay from the powers of who may be up there in the controller's realms where the ACIO domain is? Do you have any inkling of an idea of any contact there from this particular levels?
I'm sorry, I don't even understand that question.
I mean, do you have any idea of how we could contact the breakaway civilizations or societies, breakaway societies that Elizabeth was talking about?
Well, from what I was told that they don't want to contact humanity. They at least Solar Warden is the one who's been given dominion over this planet, and they are suppressing a lot of this technology. So the other groups, a lot of them are Nazis, and they have that sort of racist philosophy towards humans. So I really don't think we'll get much help from them, but maybe certain extraterrestrial groups might be willing to assist, maybe or even our higher selves and our own cells and other parallel realities which communicate to us on our subconscious.
James, I'm not talking about the non-human factions. I'm talking about the human factions that had been breaking away, like the breakaway civilizations and societies that Elizabeth was talking about.
I'm not in active contact with anyone right now.
Oh, I'm sure the secret space program, the ACIO people would have known them or been in contact with them or negotiating with them or whatever, I'm sure, if there is such a faction. What do you think, Elizabeth?
I know that there have been legends through the years of secret brotherhoods that have maintained the knowledge, especially from antediluvian civilizations. And that would be one type of breakaway civilization. For example, the Talos group and that sort of thing, and the Agarthans.
And the Agarthans.
Yeah. And then there are ones that broke away recently, probably in the 40s, 30s and 40s. And those, from what I hear, want nothing to do with humanity either, unfortunately. But it's interesting that they're kind of tampering with us constantly about that. The whole concept was addressed in a book called The Mendelov Conspiracy by Martin Caidin, one of his last books, as I understand. Mm-hmm. And that's very interesting because he talks about a society that broke away and has a kind of a brain trust of different scientists that they brought in. And their motivation basically was to disguise themselves as an extraterrestrial threat to get humanity together against a common threat, so they would unite. And it's an interesting concept. And in the book, he basically decides that that's not a good idea. But it's interesting that Martin Caidin actually did touch on that. Martin was privy to some very interesting information. So it's interesting that he came up with that one. Oh, Arthur C. Clarke, I mean, he was privy to some information as well. So,
and you mentioned the Agarthans. Perhaps, Asif Daniel, you want to introduce the concept of the Agarthans coming up to do some disclosure for humanity? Asif Daniel, can you speak up? I'm talking about Tamarinda Masen, who's organizing the huge big symposium in New York on August 27th, 28th, 29th. I think those are the dates. Bringing disclosure to humanity. Asif, can you speak up? Asif is Romanian. Tamarinda Mason apparently is the ambassador of the Agathans, Inner Earth or Hollow Earth, and she has she's coming up to talk about disclosure, a disclosure to humanity. But there again,
Dan says he doesn't have a microphone.
That's not 100% human, according to ETN. So you can't hear me?
He doesn't have a microphone.
Oh, Asif doesn't have a microphone. He said that's fine. Yeah. So anyway, that's all there is. Is there anything else? Okay, James, is there anything else before I move on to Ron and Pontus? James?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. Pontus, do you have anything to say before we wrapped up the meeting? Anything?
Well, it has been very interesting, and we will have to see how to develop this and make it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And as far as developing it, I mean, it already has been developed at least twice. So the problem is developing it underneath the radar.
Yeah. And we will keep searching and looking for the missing links. Okay. Thank you. Last but not least, our brother Ron. Ron, you're now unmuted.
I think Elizabeth's right. Under the radar is the way we need to figure something out. There's probably a lot of different energies that we could come up with, and that's the big thing, though. Under the radar, so that we don't end up with all of us with a bullet to the back of the head or something like that.
Yeah.
All right, so I think we've covered everyone. Is there anybody I've left out here? All right. Sorry, you want to say something? Sure, Michael, go ahead.
You know what I found out? We're living in a day and time now. We should not fear. Fear is a mind killer. And if you are doing something for humanity, you should just do it. Why should you fear? I have no fear in what I do. Because, you know, I don't fear death. Yeah. So I do what I do without fear. And the time we're living now, people should understand that the Rothschild and everyone, their days are numbered. It's a new era. So you should just do what you're doing, and why should you fear?
I'm not living in fear, Michael. That's not what I meant.
Yeah, not just you. I'm just saying, you know, overall, we should just develop what we haven't come out with it, you know, and just stand in our power and bring it out. Just do it. You know, I'm just you know, passing it over, you know, so.
Yeah.
Well, the way forward to win the game is to be clever and wise in staying alive as long as we can, so we can accomplish our mission here on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a difference between fear and being careful and staying alive.
When you're a number, you got a number, you got a time, and no one can take you before your time.
Yeah. We sometimes we are wearing some rose-tinted glasses sometimes because we have not had it as the scientists had, the threats and the death threats and the bullying and everything that they have gone through. Well, we hadn't worn their shoes, so we don't know. So we can't really judge by saying there's fear in that. I think they're just trying to stay alive.
I know that was then, but what I'm trying to say, I am here. I'm a supreme being, and I'm just telling you who I am and why I'm here. Why I'm on the earth now, to let you all know those days are finished.
Mm-hmm.
what
Yes,
was
Michael.
happening at a different time. And that is what I am saying. You know, it's not for everyone. I'm just expressing myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and it's
Thank
very
you.
nice to speak to all of you. And thanks for having me.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for coming back to join us. And thank you, Vrez, for chairing the meeting. And thank you, co-chairing the meeting. And thank you, Eliza, for, oh, wow, such a wonderful and uplifting presentation. And there, having gone round the table, there being no other business, this meeting, the 41st meeting, is now adjourned to the next meeting on the 6th of September, 2017, which is the 42nd meeting, when Patrick J. Kelly is kind of like the father of free energy devices education, will continue with what he had covered up to the item number 21, the Alexcos battery. He will continue with another 24 more devices to be presented in his second presentation, and that is this forthcoming 42nd FESIG meeting on the 6th of September. So folks, look out for this one and be with us. Thank you. Thank you very much, brothers and sisters. Thank you. We shall now end the meeting.
Have a wonderful evening.
Yeah.